It's Thursday, November 13th, 2025, and Solovyov is not happy. I'm going to explain why in just a moment. But if you're not familiar with me, my name's Gerdes. I'm just a professor trying to provide context in the war in Ukraine. Here we're going to look at how, 7 different little stories that are showing you just how Russia has some issues, and they don't want you to see this. Okay, so the Russians first love to talk about the corruption in Ukraine and see that into social media. 1 in 10 Russian lawmakers have criminal ties. Now, we were just talking about yesterday, we were talking about the incestuous relationships that they have in families, the nepotism between people that work in government and defense and whatever else, and how tied they are that way. Okay, 1 in 10 Russian lawmakers have criminal ties, investigation by Proact. According to the outlet, at least 63 out of 625 current members of parliament have had legal troubles. Of those, 37 actually secured their seats in the Duma or Federation Council to avoid prosecution. Okay, because the rules are written that you can't be prosecuted while you're sitting in office. Parliamentary immunity was often bought with bribes, a practice found across all factions, but most widespread within the LDPR party. That's not the Ukraine. That's the LDPR party within Russia. Looks like the State Duma has finally found a way to fight crime in Russia. It's like the old joke. Even in the United States, we talk about this kind of thing. I said to my kids, don't you know where liars go? And they think I'm speaking of something else. And I say Washington, right? But it's far, far worse here. Okay, second, as Trump tries to Putinize the United States, Putin is attempting to turn Russia into North Korea, says Gary Kasparov. Foreign adventurers are a necessary distraction for a dictatorship, but when they go wrong, further crackdowns are needed to avoid talking about them openly. Well, what's he talking about? He's talking about this story. The Russian city of St. Petersburg, with a population of 5.6 million, has been almost completely cut off from mobile internet. Now, they did this in another region the other day, and that looked like it was to keep drones from being able to attack. We turned off the mobile internet, and the drones are having a harder time finding their way. Okay, residents report that websites, messengers, banks, delivery apps, and taxis are all unavailable. Some say they lost all internet access with only government services still functioning. Funny how that works. That app still works. But okay, just a little bit more about this. The telecom operators told Russian media the outlets are related to security measures. However, no official alerts about drone threats have been announced. In addition to St. Petersburg, disruptions to mobile internet have also been reported in Russian Sochi, Tula, Voronezh, Ryazan, Krasnodar, Saratov, Nizhny Novgorod, and Ufa today. So these are the level of outages. So they're doing this for a reason, because they want to be able to shut this down because, well, I'll show you. A day after the Russian government announces plans to cut off internet in 2026, cut off internet? Yeah, well, make it a bubble. Cut it off from the rest of the world. The regime's internet blocking filter begins a campaign telling Russians how beautiful the world will be after they are denied one more piece of technology that the free world enjoys. I'm not making this up. Here, the State Duma stated that RUNET will be disconnected from the global network if there is interference in the 2026 elections. Okay, they're being primed for this right now. And I'm not making this up. This is the actual thing. When Wi-Fi is working, but life is on pause. When Wi-Fi is resting and you are finally living. And then Wi-Fi doesn't mean losing connection. Sometimes it means finding your connection with yourself. Okay, well, that's one way to sell it. Now, there was also a first arrest under Russia's new law over an internet search for Ukraine's Azov regiment. So what happened here is that Russia's FSB has for the first time applied new legislation enabling prosecution for merely looking something up on the internet. The 20-year-old student was detained just hours after he looked up relevant information linked with Ukraine's defenders. Given a small amount of time and the fact that the FSB detained him before looking at his phone, it seems chillingly likely that it was his mobile phone provider, T2, who reported him to the FSB. So that's the wave of the future in Russia. Okay, 70% of Russian university students refuse to install Putin's new North Korea-style Max Messenger. This is the one thing that's still working. It's spyware that gives the government control of user phones. Russians will now be forced to verify age when purchasing alcohol with the app. So that's one way that they're going to kind of get them in line. They have to verify that with, if they're going to purchase alcohol. Okay. Also, Jay and Kiev having graduated from attempting to trick the audience by putting a guy in a robot costume, as they did 5 years ago, Russia tonight unveils its first real robot to the theme of decadent Western 80s musical hit, Rocky. And it didn't go well. Okay, so here we see this. The robot's coming out, and look at that. I mean, this is the Russian robot. Now, it's working in conjunction with Elon and China, but this is a Russian robot, and they're touting this and making it look all awesome. Look what the robot can do. It can walk around. It's so natural. It can fall like an old man. So, okay, there we are. I hope it didn't break a hip. Now, Solovyov was not happy about this. Meanwhile, Russian state TV host Vladimir Solovyov, this is Julia Davis, who runs Russian Media Monitor, does excellent work, was horrified by the falling Russian robot and other technological shortcomings, especially in comparison with robots produced by China and Elon Musk. But the Russian robot, not necessarily so great. Here's what Solovyov had to say. And they're right, none of it is there. Okay, and this is just a funny man, Elon Musk, who shows what his robot can do. Now, on the battlefield, they meet Elon Musk's robot, the Chinese robot, and Idol. And now we're going to get to see the Russian robot. It wasn't from Elon and China. These were two different robots. Now here's the Russian robot. First of all, because Idol has to be accompanied by two people in an attire, they have to hold up Idol's head. Oops. And since he falls the heck down, he's not happy. Next to him, there's Elon Musk's dancing robot. A little bit later, he comes back and talks about it. Oi, 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 oi. He can dance, and there will be 1 million of them. I think this is the Elon one that we're talking about now. They cost significantly less. Elon Musk's army of robots. Comprehensive production will start by the end of 2026. It will become the year of the Terminator. Is it awesome? Yes, it is. Tesla is planning to create an army of 1 million humanoid robots, Optimus. I mean, it is pretty impressive what the Tesla robot here can do. Isn't it beautiful? Of course it is. And then there's us. We brought out our army of robots. That dirtbag went down. I think he's calling the robot a dirtbag. What are we going to do? Nothing. Why would we do anything? Music and presentation is what matters most. If discreditation was their goal, they've succeeded marvelously. Otherwise, I don't know what it was for. I really don't know. Look at his face. Okay, so that's how Solovyov reacted to it. And by the way, 5 years ago, they tried to convince the world that a man in a robot suit was new Russian technological marvel. Look how marvelous it is. After all, it can do, and I'm just going to scroll through this, all these things. It can dance and look human and act human, and the lights light up like a human face. Well, turns out you could see here that there was a human inside of it. You can see his ear and neck and that sort of thing. Yeah, charming. And so that's how they tried to fake him out last time. So they faked him last time, and this time it fell over. So they don't want you to see that. But they can still do cheesy AI. So Russians have put AI to work for their propaganda, creating videos aimed at demoralizing Ukrainians. The clip features exhausted soldiers and staged confessions generated with artificial intelligence. You can judge the quality for yourself. So readers add to this wonderful note here, this video has been made with AI, which can be clearly seen by how the stretcher is hovering with the men around, not actively lifting it, and by the unrealistic movement of the wheelchair. The guy on the wheelchair is actually like holding on to the thing, not pumping the wheelchair to move forward. He's just kind of sitting there holding it. So, yeah. Now, but they can do these pretty bad propaganda movies. Everyone wants to be Russian. Why? Because we're good people. So there's a Russian film company that released a movie called Good Neighbors. It's described as a heartwarming family film about friendship, mutual support, and love. Well, let's look at a little bit of this. My grandparents were from Saratov. My father moved to Moscow, served in the army, brought my mother, and they stayed here to live. I'm not talking specifically about our ancestors, but about the common Russian ancestors, Russes, who founded the state of Rus. They fought off enemies and took other peoples under their protection. Well, under their protection or under their yoke. There's there's a difference there. And these others bit the hand that fed them. Just yesterday, I went to the market to buy fruits, peaches, cherries, and this guy from a former Soviet republic put rotten ones into my bag. I came home and threw half of them away. I was so upset. How can that be? We always help Russians. In Soviet years, we built cities and factories and theaters and hospitals and schools for them. In the 90s, they kicked our people out, but they can't live without Russians. So they came back to Russia to earn money. And instead of living according to their conscience, they constantly tried to deceive us. Well, conscience. Conscience is a quality of a Russian person. Look at what I read in an English geologist traveler, rhetoric immersion. Quote, even if Russia expands its possessions at the expense of neighboring colonies, wait. Even if they do what? Even if they expand its possessions at the expense of the neighboring colonies? Yeah, that's what he said. Even if they do that, then it gives its new acquisitions more than it takes from them, unlike other world colonial powers, like slavery, like being under their yoke, like not having choice in the matter, like having to be indoctrinated by Russians and to love Mother Russia over your own country. Sure, that's what they do. Moral standards developed among Eastern Slavs since pre-Christian times. They do not allow a Russian person to violate someone else's conscience or encroach on property. That's all they're doing. Like, I'm watching this and I'm just thinking, whoa, here's the governor of the Kherson People's Republic, right? Russia will not take Kherson. Kherson is Russia. We are simply bringing Kherson residents back to their family, declared Salodo, the pro-Russian governor. No, you're not simply bringing them back. You're putting them under the yoke. And then why don't they want to be, everybody wants to be Russian? Isn't it charming to live in Russia? This lady just pulls out a machete. In Russia's Samara region, a taxi passenger threatened the driver with a machete, demanding that he play Sanshan. The taxi ride in the Samara region nearly turned into a bloody scene after a passenger pulled out this machete and began threatening the driver, insisting that he change the music. I'm telling you, I don't understand this kind of music. Do you not understand the first time? Turn on Sanshan. Son, the passenger shouted. Okay, great. Well, I played this morning, but it's worth playing again. The smile and joy as he says, no Russians is so effective. This is in Kherson, the Ukrainians in Kherson. Remember, the governor wanted to just return it because it was just returning to Russia anyway. It's just part of what Russia is. But here's what he had to say about the liberation 3 years ago.
That we are finally liberated, that we are free. Because now we have no electricity in the city, no water, no central supply heating, no mobile connection, no internet connection. But we have no Russians. And I'm extremely happy. Oh.
Yeah, he's extremely happy because of just that. All right, we're to the point right now where the robot is in meme form. So that's like an evolution where we know that this is matured, right? So here is a Kremlin-made robot prototype idol that's long overdue for the scrap heap of history, says a commentary. Faceless mannequin trying to pass itself off as a living leader, but the whole act is falling apart. Stiff movements, empty lines, zero emotion, an outdated piece of junk kept running purely out of inertia. That's a really interesting metaphor alert. Not just that they made this meme, but the commentary around it is pretty stunning. All right, my friends, tell me what you think about this. I'm curious about your comments here. I think these are a lot of little metaphor alerts that help us understand what's really going on. Thank you for the time, the likes, the shares, and the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person who cares about Ukraine.